9 days away is the 2024 presidential contest. Now, in the last stretch, Trump is still blazing to unprecedented heights as the election draws near. I'll be updating my 2024 electoral map forecast in this video to show you folks where Harris and Trump stand on the crucial struggle for 270 electoral votes. First, we will complete the solid states for both candidates, races where either Harris or Trump will prevail by 15% point margin or more. First, we'll begin with the vice presidential safe blue states. She is readily going to win Washington, California, Hawaii, Illinois, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Joe Biden's home state of Delaware, Maryland, the District of Columbia, and the 1st District of Maine. Her electoral votes come from this: 131. For Trump, the Deep South and all the rural states west will be readily conquered. Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska except its 2nd district. Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, and South Carolina are thus the safe red states on this map. This ties the Democrats and the Republicans practically exactly. With the likely states, Harris, just 9 electoral votes away from Trump, will readily help him to retake the lead. Therefore, most likely races are ones where either candidate will win by 7 to 15 points. Although these races will be rather more competitive, one candidate will still have a clear edge. And so, beginning with the most obvious of the likely states for the former president, we will start with these. Of course, Alaska comes first. Although Democrats have lately been gaining ground in the state in 2022, he still will win by a double-digit margin. The state's sole House seat went to Mary Peltola, who currently represents Alaska. Then up in Maine, the 2nd district is probably red. Trump is expected to win it 3 times in succession. We also have Ohio and Iowa, 2 states Democrats constantly believe they can conquer. Most analysts and polls back in 2016 had Hillary Clinton winning both Iowa and Ohio, 2 states that Barack Obama visited in 2012. Clinton lost, though, not only by almost double-digit margins. That same thing occurred in 2020. Left-leaning pundits all agree that Joe Biden has a quite reasonable chance of winning Ohio and Iowa. The polls most certainly pointed that way. Ultimately, Trump prevailed in these 2 states by almost exactly the same margins. Trump might win Ohio and Iowa today by double-digit margins of 10% or more. For the GOP in the lower Midwest, this will be a blowout. Ohio and Iowa both are probably Republican. We then find 2 more likely red states down in the Sun Belt. Regarding their likely nature as well, I find it rather clear. Starting in Texas, a race Trump carried by 6 points 4 years ago, in 2016, he won at 9 back in. Trump most likely will win Texas in 2024 with his biggest margin yet. It can vote red by 10 percentage points or more, most definitely. Mitt Romney in 2012 was the last Republican to take the state handily. Trump most certainly won't crack 15, but 7 to 10 points is most certainly more than likely. The Lone Star State will thus most certainly be red. We also possess Florida, 30 more electoral votes. Given Texas and Florida taken together, this represents 70 votes toward the former president. These are 2 large awards in 2 states deemed competitive in 2020. Polling had Joe Biden winning Texas at several points over the 2020 cycle. Based on the Election Day data, he was also supposed to win Florida. Biden lost Florida not only but also performed worse than Clinton did here in 2016, and in 2024 Democrats realize they have lost Florida. For them it is absolutely gone. Trump can win the state anywhere between 7 and 12 points. Red is most definitely what it is. And with the likely states filled in for Trump, he is at 219 electoral votes, just 51 from the presidency. We will now proceed to discuss the likely blue states races Harris is expected to win by 7% points or more. Let us thus begin with Oregon and New Jersey. Clearly still going blue, these 2 states are more liberal neighbors even if their margins are in Maryland. Oregon and New Jersey essentially are not as left-leaning as they claim. Additionally, we have the Empire State of New York. Harris seems to be winning the race by barely under 15 points. Since 1988, this Democratic performance in the Empire State will be the worst. Finally, we have Colorado, 10 electoral votes. Biden carried 14 points in the last election in this state. Harris won't even break 10. If she wins the state by more than 7 points, She will be fortunate. For now, I do have the race as likely Democratic. And thus, with just 201 electoral college votes, filling in Harris trails with all the probable states occupied. We thus have the 12 most competitive races in the nation left. Although Nebraska has a second district as well, essentially it will be these states that will determine the election's winner, which again falls in just 10 days. Kamala Harris has to sweep Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and the whole upper Midwest to win. Her good news is now that Joe Biden did win all 4 of these states back in 2020. Her bad news is that she is pulling much below the level of the current president 4 years ago. She is also dragging far more than Hillary Clinton did in 2016. She also lost Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and hardly emerged triumphant in Minnesota. We will now complete the lean states races going to Harris or Trump using 2 to 7 points. Though realistically one candidate is still the clear favorite to win, these races could absolutely go either way. Starting in Tim Walsh's native Minnesota, he's essentially the only reason Kamala Harris is the favorite here. Should Walsh not be on the ballot, Minnesota would rank among the most competitive states in the union. Though Joe Biden won the state by an amazing 7 points in 2020, Harris leads by just 3 to 4 points in the polls, and he wasn't running with the state's incoming governor. Minnesota, so favoring the Democrats, will thus be the first lean state shown on the map. Kamala Harris next struggles in New Mexico. Though Joe Biden carried the state by almost twice that margin, her leads in the polls are just 6 points. Trend you observe all around the nation. Democrats are losing Hispanic voters. New Mexico will thus also turn to be lean blue. Turning now northeast, we find 2 rather fierce races in Maine and New Hampshire. 2 claim Kamala Harris will win by less than 7 points. Though just as recently as 2016, these 2 states went down to the wire, Joe Biden did win them by probably margins. Hillary Clinton prevailed in New Hampshire by less than half of a percentage point. She emerged triumphant in Maine by less than 3. Kamala Harris's margin of success will lie somewhere between Clinton's and Biden's. Hence, both of these races will be lean blue. Additionally, we have Nebraska's second district. Here, Democrats are preferred. Redistricting has indeed placed Democrats in even better position. Harris is winning here primarily for that reason. Donald Trump would probably be the winner if we reverted to the previous second district borders. The Commonwealth of Virginia will ultimately be the last lean blue state shown on this map. Kamala Harris is winning by somewhat over 2 points. In the last election, the state went to Biden by 10%, but ever since, it has most definitely shifted to the right. Actually, Republicans gained the governorship here, with Glenn Youngkin returning in 2021. Although polls here always overestimate Democrats, polling today reveals Harris leading here by just 5 points. Given this, I would be surprised if she could really pull off anywhere near an improbable margin of victory. And hence Virginia will be the last lean blue state supporting Kamala Harris. The last 7 states remain, 3 up in the Rust Belt and 3 down in the Sun Belt. These 7 states are really going to choose the next president, since the outcomes in practically every other state are predestined. Republicans have no chance of winning in Colorado or Washington. In Texas or Florida, Kamala Harris is not going to prevail. These 7 states are truly the ones most likely to allow one path or another. The unfortunate news for Kamala Harris is that she is failing in each one of them. Kamala Harris is underwater through all 7 of the battlefields. Let us begin with Georgia. Though what's interesting is that I actually visited Joe Biden in the last election. This is, in my view, the most right-leaning of all 7 states. Biden carried it by somewhat less than 0.25%. On the whole map, this state was the closest one. Still, Trump leads by a shockingly 2.2% margin today. Georgian polls usually have rather high accuracy. Trump coming out on top here by 3 to 4 points makes sense. Given his loss just 4 years ago, the margin of victory will be rather amazing. Consequently, the peach state of Georgia will be the first lean red state on the map. Arizona will be the next Sun Belt state following this. I basically plan to follow his winning sequence for these races. It will slide from the most conservative to the least. We so began with Georgia already. On his road to success, this marks his first turn. Arizona comes last. Furthermore, he will be rather unlikely to be able to win any of the 5 remaining states if he loses Arizona. Arizona thus truly is a must-win state. Should he lack support here, he will battle everywhere else. The good news for him, though, is that he has led Arizona rather broadly, same as in Georgia. Actually, he is ahead by 1.5%. Moreover, polls always understate Donald Trump. Thus, you have to take this into account. That has occurred every single time, every single election cycle. And so Arizona is heading to Trump under a rather similar margin to Georgia, most likely around 3% points. Democrats have already won another race in 2020, this one. Kamala Harris is thus defending the state, but obviously she is not performing sufficient quality work. Arizona will thus also be guiding for Donald Trump. Actually, we are going to leap right now into Pennsylvania. We are going to head toward the Midwest. For now, we will overlook Nevada and North Carolina. The next state that will land under the former president's favor is Pennsylvania. Among all the battlefields, it boasts the most valuable electoral votes. If Trump prevails in Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris essentially loses. She has to clear the whole Midwest. And that is something nobody really thinks she is headed toward. Donald Trump leads by 0.6% in the Keystone State, according to polls. He will most likely finish the race just over 2 points ahead. Given both campaigns' awareness of Pennsylvania's significance, it will be certainly competitive. That is the reason both contenders are making so many visits throughout the state. Trump carried Pennsylvania by 0.7 in 2016. Biden claimed it back by 1.2. It has thus been rather close in both of the past 2 cycles. On this map, Pennsylvania will be the last lean red state going into 2024, though. All 4 of the surviving states will be classified as tilt, thus their decisions will be based on 2% points or less. And we will start in North Carolina, where I have Trump winning by barely under 2 points. Still, the former president will have a great triumph. From 2020, he will get better off of his performance. Mark Robinson, the Republican candidate for governor, is the reason I do have some reservations about Trump in the Tar Heel state, though. He has led a terrible campaign. He is about to lose. He has lately been inundated with too many scandals. Furthermore, these down-ballot contests won't have a significant impact on the top of the ticket race. Robinson, though, is most definitely not doing Trump any favors. The polling average shows Trump trailing by 0.8%. I completely think he will prevail in North Carolina. This is a state he carried in both 2016 and 2020, the only one out of the 7 swing states where he was able to accomplish this. But given the gubernatorial contest, I have turned North Carolina into the tilt Republican classification, and thus Trump will have enough to get him over 270. Along with Pennsylvania, his road winds most of the Sunbelt states. He technically doesn't need Arizona now, but he will suffer in Pennsylvania and North Carolina should he not win Arizona. Should he prevail in these 2 states, he most certainly already has won Arizona. And so now we're just finishing off the map of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, 2 states that always vote together alongside Pennsylvania. The 1988 election marked the last occasion the 3 blue wall states did not all support the same candidate. Looking at the polls today, Trump leads by 0.2% in Michigan and Wisconsin as well. In both of these states, polling really overstated Joe Biden by 6 to 7 points. Trump most certainly will flip Michigan and Wisconsin back last time around. 2016 saw his winning of them. They will vote for him with 1 to 2 point margins. And last, at this point, Nevada is what I think to be the most competitive state. And since this is the only one Kamala Harris even has a remote chance for, this is quite detrimental for her. Right now, the polling places the former president ahead by 0.7. Nevadan polls are usually rather accurate. It is now rather competitive. Republicans lost the Senate seat, yet gained the governorship in 2022. Still, right now I have Trump as my favorite. I mean, he is accelerating in momentum quite rapidly. It seems unlikely that it will fade. In politics as well, momentum is quite crucial. This is therefore my revised electoral map projection for 2024. Donald Trump readily on target to win with a stunning 312 electoral votes. Not even particularly close are Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. He need only one of the 4 tilt states. He is exactly on target to win this thing. Comet January 20th, 2025 will see the former president returning to the White House. I really appreciate you folks watching. Make sure you like, comment on, and subscribe right now for more stuff like this approaching the November election.